Hey, hey,
Hello, hello. What up, dude?
man, I'm having a good day.
You having a good day? Okay, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to your day, your good day, rubbing off on my day, and helping me have a good day too.
That's good, man. I'm pretty chill. I just got a massage, so that never hurts. So,
Oh, really? Do you have to wear like a face mask the whole time?
uh, while you're facing up, yeah. And it's like this local lady that I know, so it's not like a bunch of people go see her.
Okay, that's cool. I haven't left my house in a long time, other than to go to the grocery store. So like, I just feel like I never leave my house. That's cool. All right, man. So we coached before. Go ahead and let me know how things have been going for you lately, and kind of what you want to focus on today.
Yeah, so following up on the last session was really good because the timing attack was a great exercise for like, oh, hey, I stopped making probes. I'm never gonna make this time, right? Like it really improved just that aspect of my game. Um, and so been doing that a bit, and then also going into like more macro styles. So I think some of the things that are kind of next on my list to exercise or try and get better on are like army hotkeys. So that's an issue for me, like trying to control, multi-prong and also defending that because now that I'm getting a little bit closer to diamond, I see more of that stuff. It's like wouldn't mind drop coming with MMM from Terran or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
going through, so yeah.
All right, sounds good. We can. Do you want to? I don't know if last time if we did like a live on the spot making something, or if we did replay stuff. But either way works for me.
Yeah, we did both. So what I was thinking is, I played a Terran game either today or yesterday that, for me was pretty good macro, but I'd like for you to look through that and be like, oh, hey, you got some problems here or there. Kind of give me some feedback on that.
Okay.
And then also, I end up going into that macro style when I scout something like if I'm versus Zerg, and I see that he's just got a pull and he's doing speed or something, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to zealot all in this guy because he's got a ton of links, and if they surround my immortals, this is over. So like identifying when I can use certain builds, so maybe going over a couple common builds and like what's strong and weak against them.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, we can break a build down then for sure. Like look at what you're saying, and a lot of it too. I'll try to make it not take too long. I'm talking about like general macro problems, but if I do see them though, I do think it's important still to touch on them, just because like if you're trying to do like a certain build, and let's just say your build is behind pacing, and you're dealing with whatever. Or let's just say I'm like hypothetically I go, well, this build's supposed to be able to deal with speedlings, and then speedlings kill you. I'm like, well, that probably just meant you just didn't have enough shit. Like, maybe you fell apart here or there, and that's why. Or maybe your build's out of order, and this is why. But yeah, we definitely break something down. So I guess I just made you leader, so you can just pop us into a replay. That hey, you're already ready to go, man. Look, you're so prepared every time.
I
Jeez.
got this, dude. So I play on Fridays with like a casual group. So yeah, always setting this stuff up.
Nice,
Make you lead.
nice. Okay. So this one. All right. We can definitely focus on some ZVP, and then so your general idea of this game is robo opener, I guess, is what you were saying.
Yep. So usually it's Robo Council opener into up to 7 gates for the zealots, and then if like in this case I didn't have very good depth pressure, I didn't feel, and I was like, okay, I think I'm just gonna go more macro.
Okay. And okay. So is this a build that you've kind of been doing yourself, or is this a build you and I specifically talked about before? I can't remember.
So I intend on going with the build that you gave me. So I've played that build a lot recently, and I find that it is typically really good against people that are super greedy.
Uh-huh.
But it kind of sucks if somebody else is doing a 2 base.
Now,
It gets sketchy.
the build I gave you before was not it was against Protoss, right? Not against Zerg.
It was against Protoss, but I've been using it and trying it out in like different
Okay.
scenarios. So like it works okay if I proxy against a Terran, but other than that,
Sure.
definitely don't want to use it.
Yeah, I would say it's actually the build I gave you before. If it ever goes Robo first, that's actually not bad against Protoss and Terran, but it's not good against Zerg. It's very specific against Zerg if you go Robo first. Of one of two ways you should do it. Like one way would be Robo first is Prism first with just straight up Warp Gate pressure. You don't even get an upgrade. You do it really fast. This is like before Zerg will even have Banelings or Roaches usually. It's like just against Queen Zergling a lot of the times.
Hmm.
So it hits a weird timing where it would kill Zerg a lot of times, and then against Zerg as well. If you go Robo first and you don't want to do that, another way to do a Robo first opener is to do like Sentry Mortal Pressure. which is, you know, that's both of these builds are a bit micro intensive. So just in general, if you're planning on doing like, let's say, a depth timing, like you should definitely be going council first.
So I'm still just doing the 2 adepts initially, and then I
Oh,
don't do
okay,
any
okay,
more
okay,
after
okay, okay, okay. I see what you're saying. Your pylon, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Your pylon's way too close to the ramp. If you move it back down, like diagonal one, like down one to the left one, that'd be perfect. Like you actually want. It's kind of weird, but I mean, I feel like if you watch the VOD, you'll understand what I mean. But right now, I can already tell your pylon radius. It goes to about there, where the green box like edges. It's like it's over the edge of the ramp. You want the pylon field to go to about there, where it barely almost touches the wall.
Yeah, so when you're spacing that, you essentially have like where the circle is, right? And then there's a small gap between like the border of the ramp, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that's the good spacing.
It's like a 1 millimeter or like a 2 millimeter gap between the edge of the pylon field and the edge of the ramp, because the building can still be planted a little bit over the edge of the pylon field. Like the edge of the building can like push over the edge of the pylon field, because the way buildings work in pylon fields is the center of the building needs to be in the pylon field, not the edge of the building. So you can have a little bit of excess of building like sticking over the edge. And yeah, because right now what's going to happen is there's a good chance your pylon's going to be either touching one of your buildings or it's going to somehow block one of your buildings based on how you build the wall. And if you built it down one to left one, I know this circle looks awkward, and a lot of people are like, they don't even want to touch that fucking circle because like a nexus goes there. But a nexus definitely is not that big. A nexus is like, I would say it goes up to like 80%, like from bottom to top, it goes like only 80% of the way up. It doesn't actually go all the way up to the top of that circle. That'd be a humongous fucking nexus. Because like, look at the circle in your main. It's the same size, and the nexus does not fully like cover that circle. So you have a little. It's kind of misleading the way they size that circle, the map that designer. Yeah. So the way you built your wall now, and your wall is gonna be fucked up. And the only way you could have salvaged this wall is if you built it from the top down, because if you built it from that side over, you cannot fit a building now properly.
Yeah, so I'll put it in a pylon to fix it later.
Yeah, and that always sucks.
This was just a mistake this game. Yeah, it was bad placement.
Yeah, building a pylon on your wall is always like, oh, fuck my life. Please don't own me.
Yep.
Okay. Your second probe to follow up down to your natural is a bit early. Also, you double chrono boosted, which is also really early. So generally, like, cause you're gonna take a natural this, I assume. Like, well, I'll just see what you do. I'll just to make sure. This is also paranoia. You don't need to do this as fast.
Well, so I ended up going, yeah. So this is what I mean when I say I start out the build that we talked about. So it's pylon, gateway, gas,
Yeah.
cyber core, pylon.
So like right now, like the fact that you have 2 gates, like if I were to ask you, like when you pulled the, because I'll see when you pull the probe for the purpose, right? I just want to make sure you understand this and like you're comfortable with it. Like right now, how you rallied the Nexus to your natural. Do you like how much pressure do you feel right now when you're about to build your second gate and your second pylon? Because I know your wall's fucked, but how much how much pressure are you feeling right now?
None, because I haven't seen an early pull. If I saw the early pull, I'd be like, oh god.
And okay, so do you know how early a pool could be? If like let's say it's the earliest pool Wizard could possibly make, do you feel like Lings could just show up at your base without you knowing about it?
No, since the scout goes out.
Yeah, as I was gonna say, your scout will get to his base before Lings will go down his ramp, so you'll know it happens before he shows up. And do you know how long it takes? Like, let's say your probe is right. We'll speed it up now. We'll say your probe is right, like right here, or you know, I kind of want it to be like going into the main a little bit. There we go. Your probe is right there, and you see Lings starting to come down the ramp. How much time do you think it will take the Lings to go from right here on the ramp to get to your base?
Like what, 12-ish seconds?
12 seconds? No,
something like that?
much longer. Because they don't have speed yet. It's impossible to have speed right now. It would take Lings about 35 seconds to get to your base from that ramp to your base. It would take about 30 to 35, probably 30. But yeah, it would take a long time, but at least half a minute. So that is plenty of time for you. Because like, if you think about it, if Lings ran down the ramp right now, and then you were like, oh shit, let's fix that. Let's figure out a wall situation right now. You have easily enough time to then take a probe, just pull it off of one of your gases or off of your mineral line, just one probe, and then you can come over here to your wall, and you can build whatever you want to build. And at that point in time, you could build your core. You could start chrono boosting a zealot, or whatever, something like that. And now you can't even chrono boost the Zealot either because you double chronoed your Nexus. And you don't want to double chrono your Nexus because it's just it's gonna fuck up all your timings. It's too much cost of probes too fast, and you'll never be able to afford a second pylon without either supply blocking, or you'll never be able to afford a second pylon on time to not supply block. But then also keep making probes. Like you're gonna have to cut probes in some way, one way or another, because now you have just too many. So the point is you could easily react to the earliest aggression Zerg could ever throw at you, which is a 12 pull, with this scouting probe and still be totally fine. So the fact that you made gateway number 2 and also pylon number 2, pylon number 2 is okay, but like what I would say is if your plan is to go for a natural, the fact that you didn't just go gateway, pylon, gateway, gas, nexus, core, gas, pylon, the fact that you didn't throw a nexus in here at all is a bit of a blunder, I would say. Because now all this does to you, or go ahead. I know you're trying to talk.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say, so this is the pressure build that we talked about. So my intent was not to open with the Gateway Nexus Cybercore opening.
Did I tell you to do this build? Was I fucking drunk?
We were just talking Protoss. So I've been trying it, right? Like,
oh
hey,
no.
Doesn't this work?
This is PvP, right? This is PvP again.
We specifically coached on PvP.
Yeah, okay.
But we talked about it's like, hey, here's an aggro build, and I was like, okay, well, what if you get? I'm like, I feel comfortable against Protoss and Zerg here, but what about Terran? You're like, oh, if you're doing this against Terran, take off 2 probes, so it'll
yeah, don't ever do this against Zerg. The reason why is because it's so much harder to get damage done against Zerg. What you're doing to yourself against Zerg is you're allowing Zerg to throttle drone count against you in like a much faster fashion. Like he's gonna have a lot of economy now compared to you. And what this does to you now is it puts you in a position against Zerg specifically where you have to kill drones like crazy to make this worth it. And that puts you in a very micro-intensive position now. Because if you throw a Depths at his base and they just die, or if you'd wait to go to his base for a long time, or anything like this, like your build just sucks against Zerg. So this is definitely not what I would tell you to do against Zerg ever. Usually against Zerg, how you want to play it with Protoss, and the Terran and Protoss, they follow the same rule set against Zerg. You want to play you either go fully all in. That's one way to, if you want to be aggressive, you go fucking all in as hell. Like you just like slam that fucking all in gas pedal and you just go for it. And if you're not doing that, you play harass with high eco, like high economy based builds with harassment potential. So like I don't mind that you do adept pressure. And I don't mind if you want to show up with 2 adepts or something like that and then go from there. But against Zerg, if you open up gateway core, double pylon, double gas, and then make a nexus, the only way I would deem that worthwhile for you as the Protoss player is if you somehow killed 8 drones or 10 drones. Seriously, somewhere in that range of 8 to 10 would be breaking even for you, because you're going to be so far behind on economy. You're going to be ridiculously far behind on economy, and you could easily still do it. The crazy thing is you could still do a double adept pressure with a single gate if you just chrono boosted it as soon as the core was done.
Okay.
Because your core is also delayed now too, if you think about it. Let's check this out.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I can modify the build like that.
Yeah. So your gateway just finished at 130, and let's see how long it takes you to build that core. Your core went down at 146, so yeah, 16 seconds late. In general, yeah, I'll just have you go, pylon, gate, gas, nexus, nexus core, gas pylon. Then that's only for Zerg. It's just you should still be going for 1 gate openers against Zerg, and the only time I would ever say it's okay to make a second gateway really, really fast is if you did scout, oh shit, this Zerg player is literally doing a 1 base all in, and as my probe got to his base, he's already got lings being made to run down to my base, and he's either mining a gas or he isn't mining a gas, whatever works. But he's 12 pulling me, and he's making a lot of lings. If you made a second gate then to get your doorway blocked better, and then you started making a zealot, I'd be okay with that. That's totally fine. But that's only against early pools. Otherwise, you can literally skip a zealot, you can skip the second gate early on, and you're not gonna make, if you're gonna do an adept pressure early, literally just make it out of 1 gate, that's totally fine. And if you plan on doing any type of a council follow-up against Zerg, you can make gateways 2 and 3 around the time when you make the council, or something like that.
What about a build starting with 7 septillion 700 and...
Alright.
Protect your probes if you don't want to lose the game.
Yeah. Just throwing it out there again. If you're, look at the economy really fast. So this is what I mean when I say, this is putting you in a really weird position, and it's, right now, the Zerg player has as many drones as you do, And this, like, in general, what's going to happen is you actually don't want to have the same amount of workers as Zerg. Like, you don't want the Zerg to be tied with you until you're in like the 30s. Like you until you're like 35, 34, 35. And the reason why this is because so far this Zerg player hasn't even been able to utilize inject really. Like, it's barely been going because the queens don't start right away. But now the injects are really going to start going. So this Zerg has the ability to make 7 larvae into whatever he wants. And then he also can do it out of both hatcheries at the same time, and you don't have both Chrono Boost active. So if you were playing like a normal pacing of Protoss, just know as a quota for yourself, you're playing a good game if you can keep the lead, in workers up until about 35, and then once you get to about 35, the Zerg starts passing you, and then the more you can keep up with it as much as possible, whether that be due to then you have a depth pressuring his mineral line or an oracle, or just straight up making workers fast yourself through like maybe a faster third. That's always good for Protoss if you can keep up with Zerg to a degree, but don't let him pass you till 35. But if he passes you at like 25, 26, 27, that's always like, ah, shit. Like that definitely is like your build's paced behind now by like a minute. You can already tell through the fact that you're
it'd be so much faster with the Nexus first.
Yeah. And just that's like a number you should always think about in your own replays in the future. If you see that and you're like, fuck, dude, like he's already passing me at like 26 again or 28, it means your build needs to be fucking reworked. Otherwise, it better be all in. And now we'll see what the adepts do. They killed. I'm glad you're killing drones. That's definitely what you should be doing. You killed 5 drones, which is, I mean, that's still kind of under par. But the one thing that you did do that is great for you is you actually forced out fucking 8 more Zerglings, and he also already has 6. So that's, or he has 8, and you forced out 8 more. So you actually made him waste 8 drones right there. So you essentially actually just killed 13 drones right there, that's actually good. That makes it worth it. I mean, it's lucky that you killed that, but it's really up to your opponent to fuck up then, which is why this build's not super great against Zerg, because if your opponent doesn't fuck up like that, you're just going to be like, all right, well, Zerg feels really strong. And then doorways as well against Zerg. Never, ever, ever double pixel gap that shit. Ever. Do not ever do that. Like, I would say if you're going to double pylon it, I know it sounds weird because your first pylon was the bottom pylon, which makes it awkward, but you would want to have had something that would create a wall for you that is closer to your, like, you want to have a 1 pixel gap, because right now the surface area for lings, like about 4 lings at a time could hit you now. Like, guaranteed.
Okay. So I used to do 1, and then on our last session you said, well, keep 2 because you need to get your Archons through.
That was against Protoss. That was against Protoss. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm teaching you a build again. Like, honestly, this is where StarCraft gets kind of crazy and kind of hard to deal with. But everything I taught you in the last lesson, apply that just to PvP. Like, and if you apply some of that to PvT, I wouldn't mind either, because there's a lot of similarities between PvP and PvT, but there are no similarities against PvZ. So, like, for instance, if you say something like what we talked about right at the start of this lesson, where you're like, how the fuck do you not die? To, like, let's say Max Zerglings run you over. This is exactly how you're giving him the advantages to be able to do something like that. Like, having large doors is how you can be like, Zerg, come run my ass over really fast. Because if you do get to a point against Zerg specifically, where you're like, all right, now I want to start using Archons, but now the doorway is fucked up. Well, it's good that you know that. Like, if you know, like, well, this is only a single pixel doorway, and I need a double pixel doorway because otherwise it's fucked. I would totally be like, then, once you're already like at 70 probes, and now you're ready to make Archons or something like that, you can by all means either kill a pylon if a pylon is literally in your doorway, or kill a gateway and rebuild that gateway somewhere else, just so you create a bigger door. Because then, if you actually have Archons, yeah, it's fine. Because at that point, Zergling run-bys are not actually a problem anymore. It's kind of, that phase of the game is kind of like a lot less threatening. Because if a Zerg did, for instance, like, let's say you're out of position at your third base and he runs like 30 lings in your natural, I'm assuming you, at that point in time, you'd probably have like 8 or 10 gateways, and you could literally just do a full warp in really fast and be like, nope, sorry, you can't kill my probes now. Or something like that. You just have more units to work with. But when you only have like 2 stalkers and 2 sentries, if there was like 40 lings that ran across the map, because let's just say that's how your opponent wanted to play, like, he has 16, but if he just stopped making drones and he's like, nah, speedling all in, that's all I'm doing now, you would totally die.
Yeah, that's happened.
Yeah. So definitely against Zerg, always 1 pixel doorway, that gap. That's a Zerg specific thing. And then I want to really quickly go back and see your build order. And then as well, if you do want to go for if you're actually gonna do charge lot pressure builds against Zerg, timings are like critical against Zerg. They really are, because Zerg has a way of getting out of control really fast if you don't be assertive about what you want to do. So the fact that you're going for charge, if you're gonna do what we talked about, like a 2-base charge timing against Protoss, I would say, you know, like it's fine to go for Robo first, because you can make immortals with it and you can do like a real immortal timing. And the more immortals you make, the immortals are amazing against Protoss units. They're just really good. But against Zerg, I would say immortals are not bad. I'm never going to say immortals are bad. They're always good all the time. But if you're actually going to do a charge timing against Zerg, you might want to be going for a council with your first 100 gas like as soon as you can. And then go for a Robo facility with your next 100. Like, so you get like your first gas will obviously go into like your gateway and your warp gate. Like you can make like a stalker and a warp gate tech or something like that. Or if you would go double adepts, you know, like 1 adept after 1 adept with 1 gateway, that's also fine. I don't mind that. But definitely go for a council early, because council early is going to make your timing so much more effective against Zerg. And timing is against Zerg, like I can't stress how important it is to, if you're going to, whatever timing you're going to go for, be very assertive about it. Because again, it doesn't really matter as much against Protoss if you're like, well, my charge is going to be a little late, but suddenly now I just have some more immortals. But if you, because there's nothing really that Protoss can do against you that's going to really fuck that over that early. Like they obviously they can do something, but it's very unlikely. Like for instance, if they hit like a couple, they give them more time to get more disruptors. Suddenly they can blow your shit up easy, or they get more air units or whatever. But against Zerg, if you give the Zerg a lot of time to just make a lot more shit, Zerg can outpace you like crazy. So you need to be very fast about what you're doing. Because, for instance, a Zerg player could go for roaches, and the more roaches he has, the weaker your timing will feel. If the Zerg goes banelings, you give him more time to make more banes, the weaker your timing would feel. So many ways your time, and also the more time you give Zerg, the more creep spread he gets, the more scouting potential he has, because overlords are fucking everywhere, and Zerglings could be everywhere too. Like he could poke your base repeatedly and see what you're doing, if he was scouting a lot. And the more time you give Zerg, the more time you give him to react, and Zerg can explode one way or the other and just overrun you. So you got to be really fucking quick about what you do against Zerg, and that's your your council is super late for being assertive with the charge timing, if that's what it's going to turn into.
Gotcha. It was, and then I saw him do all the links, and so I'm like, okay, let's battery up in case this guy just charges across the map.
And also, I would say, here's a crazy thing too. I'm glad you said that, because I was going to totally not even say that to you. I was going to kind of bypass it. But never make more than 1 battery at the start of the game. Unless you know he's already attacking you from like 1 base, and you don't think he's going to ever expand. But the reason why I say don't ever take double battery, like just blindly, is because 1 battery already is enough to have a battery overcharge. And battery overcharge is fucking insane. Also, I think you're building I also think you're building your batteries a little too close to the wall. Like if you built a battery, let's look at your battery on the left. That's like kind of close to the core. If you put
can you like box the range?
Yeah, I will. If you like, okay, I'll just say this. Like if this battery on the top, okay, near the core was healing, it could heal about this big. Let me get a bigger screen here. It could heal about this big right here. That's about how big that battery could heal. It's about like even bigger, honestly. It's about 5 range in every direction. So if you imagine in your head right now, if it's not a square, if you just rounded the corners off and made a perfect circle inside the square, that's about how big the battery could heal. So it doesn't go all the way to the corners, but it does for the sides, like top, up, down, left, right. It does go all the way to those. If you put a circle in here, because it's closer to the center of the circle. So if you put if you put the battery straight down all the way from where it is, all the way touching the nexus, that would be a great battery, because you don't need to heal the edge of the ramp, like over like the middle of the ramp over here. You don't need to be healing this far. Like a zealot could be standing right there and getting healed by that battery, where I just made another green box. But if you put the battery all the way down to against your nexus, What you want it to do is you want it to be tucked away so deep in your base that if the Zerg player were to go like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and focus that battery down. You could, if you have a sentry, you could be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to force field one time and lock you into whatever in front of my buildings you are with whatever unit you're trying to do this with. And let's say it's Ravagers. And like 3 Ravagers come forward and try to like start crucifying the battery. And you just lock them in. And you're like, now your whole push is fucked because I just killed all your Ravagers. And, you know, that sucks for you. Because he had to commit so deep to do that. So it's easy to abuse him with force field. And if he doesn't do that, and he just, you know, which most Zergs won't because that's kind of suicidal to do that if it's that tucked away, it allows you to have a battery that can heal the edge of your gateway, like the edge of your wall, essentially. Like all your buildings can be healed by that battery. Like just, it's like barely in range. And then also
So then
all your doorway. Go ahead.
So if I'd have got that last Adept out and then I used him to go back in and scout and I saw a Baneley nest, at that point we'd be like, oh yeah, that's second battery time there.
I would say honestly no. I would say it's the time it's when it's time to take a second battery is when you're already getting attacked. If you feel like it's actually really threatening.
Okay, so like during the attack.
During,
okay.
Yeah. If you're like, fuck, this is gonna kill me. Like I think I need more batteries. Definitely do it then because if you open like this with sentries, and this is also here's a crazy thing too. If you open with sentries, I kind of want to make you a build for Zerg because this build looks like it's never gonna work. I'm just gonna throw it out there because opening up sentries and then going into a Robo first was fine because that could be like, okay, we might be going Immortal Sentry. That makes sense. But going into Charge really fast as well with Immortal Sentry doesn't make a lot of sense against Zerg. It's way too early for the Council if you're going to play defensive Charge. But like if you're going to go for like a Charge the Archon Immortal type thing. But if you're going to go really aggressive and assertive with Charge lots, then Sentries don't... like one
defensive
Sentry...
Charge a thing? I've only ever used it aggro.
Yeah, it is if you do it later. Like you don't get it like really fast on 2 bases. Like a defensive charge would be a thing if you got it on like a 3rd base, and then you opened up like Robo Immortal Sentry first, and then went into charge after. And we're gonna like build up to a Charge the Archon Immortal timing or something like that. But against Zerg, again, it's a little bit of a. This is why I'm kind of saying like this build is overall kind of scary because if your opponent just went mutas, you'd be kind of fucked. You'd have to scout that before it becomes a problem. It puts a lot of pressure on you to not fuck it up, basically. So, Council, I would honestly say just don't ever build a Council unless you plan on being really aggressive against Zerg. Yeah. Like early game. Always build it later on, once you have already like established a 3rd base. But early game, don't ever build this unless you want to be really aggressive. So, I'm going to kind of speed through it now, and I'm going to kind of see what your gameplay is, like your game plan overall is, like in the order of what you do. I like the Overlord kill, by the way. That was really good. You scout for a 3rd. His 3rd is super late for the Zerg. And you see a layer and a really late 3rd. But you also only see 2 gases. So if I were to pause it right now and I were to ask you, what do you think this guy's doing? How would you read this?
So since I see the Roach and Evo, I'm like, okay, he's probably just going to create some Roaches and either do a timing with that or just chill in macro.
Okay. I agree with you. I think Roaches and Lings are... definitely a possibility here. And I would say, just to throwing it out there, the fact that he's layer tech with only 2 gases definitely means that he only has enough gas to afford literally just Roaches at this point. Like, you're not going to expect anything from layer tech actually, like a Infestation Pit or a Spire or a Hydrogen. It's too little gas. And then if you back it up as well, and you look at this too, when your scout happened, if you gave yourself the opportunity to see it, I don't know, let's see. How threatened do you feel right now? Just I'm gonna pause it right here, and just looking at this, do you feel threatened right now?
No, since my scout went across and I didn't see the army, and I'm not seeing a lot of actual army so far still.
This is when I would say I would feel like you probably should feel threatened, and the reason why is because Zerg, like I said before, Zerg should be able to pace faster than Protoss with workers, especially when you get to the 30 range, and the fact that your build this game was super late Nexus. And your natural is fully saturated. And his is barely, like, it's like halfway saturated. This looks fucking scary because this means there could be an army on the map somewhere already. Either that or this guy just has terrible fucking macro. So, like, there's no reason why he should have way less drones than you have probes. But again, the reason why that happened is because he made a fuckload of Lings earlier. But like that is like the point I'm trying to make here is if you see something like this where you're like, wow, this guy's economy kind of sucks. Watch what you do with your army in a second here, and this is the shit that you need to not do because this is super risky. You just move out, and that is potential for you to die now. if your opponent was actually, if he was playing properly and he had no drones, that would mean he has a lot of army. And if you move out of the safety of your wall and your battery and he just has speedlings that surround you, you're fucked. So you move away up here and you're kind of like looking for a fight, and that is super scary. Because you're definitely scouting, you're like, where the fuck are you?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's not the time to do that.
It's your ship, right? Time to show out.
So I did that because, and yet you're right, like I would get caught out, but the Immortal came down, I warped in 2 more Zealots, so I was like, I can block this wall off, worst case.
Well, the worst case scenario for you right now is your army out in front of your base just gets fully surrounded by Speedling Roaches. Because he showed you he's going for what looks like Speedling Roach style, where he opened up with Speedlings, and then he made a lot of Lings as well early on. And then he followed it up with low gas, low drone count, Roachborn layer tech, which means that if this guy really wanted to play as efficient as he could with that build, he should just be going Roach, like for a Roachling all in with Speed Roach and Speedling.
So to like escort my probe, right? Because I wanted to check up here, see if there's anything in the probes going the other way. Like, should I just send like a few Zealots with him or Stalkers, or just send him alone?
Just like you can send the probe alone, or you can send some units with him. That's totally fine. But don't ever send your army away from where the probe goes. Like the fact that your army went north and your probe went like east, that is kind of scary, because what you want to be doing with Protoss, you never ever want to be caught like this in the open, because all that's going to happen is it's going to force you to recall and lose a chunk of your army in the process, or you're not going to recall at all and you're going to lose everything. The Zerg will just run you over. So what you want to do is you want to follow, if you want to follow your probe, that's okay, and you go with the probe and you get over to your Nexus as fast as possible. And you build your SimCity a little bit better than you did here. Like, this is like really exposed as well with the way you built your SimCity around your Nexus. So Nexus is obvious. It's always going to be perfect because it's supposed to be as close as it possibly can be to your minerals and your gas. But what you should do as well is you should give yourself the ability to limit surface area. So the way you should kind of build it out is, what if instead of building your pylon the way you built it, build it against the side of the Nexus above the gas. So like build it like where it's still on the top side of either the left side or the right side of the Nexus. I would say the better side to build it on would be the more exposed side that's further away from your natural. So it would be the east side, the right side. So if you build a pylon, kind of like, again, if we're looking at the VOD here, you'd build it like right there, would be fucking perfect. And the reason why this would be perfect is because what you want to do to fuck Zerg over the most is you want to create a gap between, if the pylon is sitting right here, you could leave a gap that is 1 pixel wide right there against the side of your Nexus. So it actually, it looks kind of weird because the circle is not actually how big the Nexus is. You can see the yellow circle here.
Mm-hmm.
That's how big it is. They'd have a 1 pixel gap like right there, and then a pylon would be right next to it on the other side. And what this does for you is it allows you to tuck like an Immortal in right there, or like a Stalker in right there, or anything, a Zealot right there. Just have one unit tucked into it. Don't have it way the fuck out in the open where the probe is. Have it tucked between the buildings, okay? And then your army could be blobbing out like right there. And you could even build, if you saw a Zerg coming to attack you, you could have your probe mine the minerals right here. It could mine the mineral patch, like, in your mineral line of your third base. And then
So I kind of use this pattern a lot, because what I end up doing, so it leaves me exposed early, and then what I end up doing is like creating like gateway wall where I'm pinging. That's not actually pinging, is it? Did you see it
now? I can do it now. I can see it now if you do it. Yeah, I know you're gonna build on the right. Yeah, I imagine you are. This is
right. Yeah, right over there. Right, and so you just like fill it with, so the way it's impassable.
If you build the pylon down though from where it is, you can still build that gateway like that. I still want you to build a gateway wall like that. That's why I want you, that's why I was saying. I'm glad you already do that, because that's what I was going to tell you to do. That's why I said you should build it on the more exposed side of your Nexus. That's further from your natural, because building a gateway wall on that side makes more sense, because it eliminates Ling Bane run bys like a lot, and you still have the ability to defend your base, because you're not going to fully wall the whole side. Like, you're not going to wall north to south on the right side of the cliff and be like, you're fully walled out, Zerg. This is no longer an entrance. It's all gateways, because then Zerg could just kill your wall with Ravagers or Hydras, which would suck. But I like that you wall from like the gas to the Nexus, like that whole like area right there, so we can't just run into the mineral line. But yeah, like your buildings, like if this battery, for instance, was on the south side of the Nexus where my green box is right now, and your pylon was further down than it is right now, and you had like another pylon, maybe the second pylon that's over there on the left, maybe you build that right there, where again my new green box is, where this limits surface area. So if you imagine, I wish I had like a John Madden fucking like layout right here where I could have like my marks stay permanent. If you had if you had a pylon on the north and south of where I'm kind of making green boxes right now, like there, and then you have a battery on the south of the nexus because it's in range of both of these pylons. This would create a little. It's like a little choke point of Protoss units that can sit here, which have very limited amounts of surface area that they can be hit by. Like if you had a one unit sitting between the gas and the mineral line on the right side, and then one unit sitting between the pylon and the nexus, and then like 2 units sitting between the pylon and the gas, like a little blob right there. Like it would be so hard for Protoss or for Zerg to engage this against Protoss, and it gives you also so many choke points to abuse with force field. So definitely the way you build is very important as Protoss. Architecture is actually massively important because if you don't respect that rule, speedlings will always run your ass over and kill you every single time. And that's exactly why you also want to have your army at this point in time. You always want to be tucked away. Because the only way Protoss can fight Zerg at this point in time, if you're not all in, which you're definitely not, is with SimCity. That's why you have to build a wall. Because if Protoss was strong enough to be like, you know what, I don't need a wall, I'll just fucking stand here, fully surround me, I'll be fine. Then obviously everything I'd be saying right now doesn't make sense, but Zerg 100% has the potential to kill Protoss if you don't have good architecture. And yeah, I'm gonna make you a build after this, just because I see your plan, and I can definitely help you have a better idea about what to do. Because right now, there's a lot of ways you could have died this game if your opponent was genuinely going to be aggressive, but the biggest thing of all is you're actually pacing at a very slow pace with your build, just by how it's kind of going. But I'm gonna kind of speed through it now, just so because I want to see what your overall game plan's gonna be. Now I have a question for you. Do you make these Colossus as a reaction, or do you just like making Colossus? And
I'm making them this game because I prefer that to Disruptor right now, and I feel like
okay.
I always need some sort of AoE versus Zerg.
That's totally fine. I just want to know if you're already at that stage where you feel like you're like, no, I'm making it because he did this and this and this. If you make them as just like as this core aspect of your build, that's totally fine. But what I would recommend you start doing from now on though is stop going charge lots. Charge lot Colossus pairs really horribly together. They do not match well together, unless you're again against Terran. That's the only time it's good is against Terran. It's very niche against Protoss. It's a very, very niche thing. It's not even something we should even talk about. It's like a GM level thing with PvP where it's very minorly done in certain ways. But against Zerg, Colossus charge lot is fucking awful.
So I actually wanted to try and get a good Terran replay, but I couldn't get a good game before we coached, because one of the questions I had was like when I'm against Terran and I see like walls of tech coming at me, so it's like Widowmine, Siege Tank, MMM, a single Raven, and a couple Vikings to deal with the Colossi. Like, how do you attack that?
I feel like, in my opinion, there's 2 really good ways to open up against Terran. One way is robe openers, one way is council openers. Council openers, you go really heavy blink, like you just make stalkers with blink early, and you just have the ability to just overpower shit with blink stalker really fast. Stalkers are actually surprisingly good if you can catch armies when they're not sieged and they're not set up yet, and before Bio has stim. Like it's crazy how good stalkers can be early on if that's what your goal is. Another way you can open against Terran is you can open up robo, and you can just go for straight up AoE right away. And you can just base it off of shield battery, like expand, wait on shield batteries, fight next to shield batteries always, and just like literally AoE him down with either Colossus or Disruptor. And if you're not comfortable with Disruptor, then obviously just go Colossus. I do think Disruptors are better against like tanks, but I don't think that is a problem for you right now because I don't think your opponents will macro well enough. And if you just have good solid macro, I'm not even kidding. If you just go Colossus, even though I think Colossus are not great against tanks. If you just have good macro with Gateway Colossus, you can still beat tank and whatever the fuck is there because tank timings in PvT are very technical and they're not easy. They're not like, oh, a fucking silver player could do this. It's super easy. Like if a guy's in Platinum and he's going for a tank Liberator, like bunker spread, bio push, where he's like sieging, unsieging, pushing you with it, I guarantee he's going to have so many parts where he's just going to fuck it up and he's going to fall apart. If you on the other hand just have good macro and you just run it over once you're ready.
Yeah, like he was obviously better at macro than me. One of the issues that I kind of face right now is just like the MMR spread. Like I got matched against a guy that was like 3600 and I'm sitting at like 3050, and so like he's diamond 1 and it's like rolls in.
Yeah, it happens for sure. There's no way to really avoid that.
So I'm positioning here for the choke point. I don't know if that's a mistake.
I think you're too far forward. I think it's good to position like a little bit more aggressively with your when you take a new expansion again, and the fact that you have now the gateway wall. And again, your wall, I'll kind of show you. I'm gonna do this map specifically, and I'm gonna build your wall on this map because your pylon on the bottom right again. That's also kind of fucked. Like you're totally gonna get owned right there.
Storm them all.
But your army should actually, where it should be, is in front of the ramp in your natural. Like standing on maybe like the low ground or maybe on the ramp between your 4th base and your 5th base. Because right now what you're doing is you're allowing the Zerg player to easily kill your 4th if he wants to from the left side because you're so far away and you have no way to punish him if he does that. And you're just as far away if you were on that ramp to your 3rd as if, we're talking the ramp to your left between your natural and your 4th base, as you are right now to where you are right now. So you like basically you're still defending your 3rd just like you would be defending your 3rd either way. But you're not defending your 4th at all because it's so far away from your 4th. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. That what I was just thinking about is like the one thing that I'm trying to figure out too is like taking fights, like good places to take them, right? So you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you need to be closer over here. So like some of that info is also helpful.
Yeah, choke points for sure. You always want to have a choke point near you. And if you go to the ramp at your 4th, if the Zerg player dove on your 4th base, you can you can kill shit as he kills the Nexus. You can punish him for killing your Nexus. You'd be like, oh, no, you want to kill my Nexus? I'll kill 30 fucking Lings. Or, something like that. And if it's just Lings, you have the ability, to actually run at your Nexus. And you could put force fields inside of buildings. And you could actually block Zerglings out of hitting the Nexus. Because you could put the force field on top of the Nexus itself. Where, the edge of it is going to shit over the side of the Nexus. It's going to push outwards. And it's going to shove Lings off the building. And, if it's just Lings, you could actually save this Nexus. If you have sentries in your army, which you do. If it's Roaches, you probably won't kill him for that, but you'll be close by to where you could walk at him, and you might be able to actually, lock some of his units inside of the force fields, and maybe you kill 15 Roaches because he wanted to kill a Nexus. Or, again, something like that. And if he just goes, you know what, fuck that Nexus, I don't care, I'm going to literally run at you, and I'm just going to run your ass over. You can actually back up just by an inch or two, and you can put 2 or 3 force fields on top of that ramp, and you can make either a really close choke point. 2 force fields would make a really tiny choke point. 3 would fully seal the ramp off, and suddenly you're like, okay, this is now a good fight again because he has low range units versus my high range units, and I'm able also not only that, but I have AOE as well, just slamming units that are shoved against force field walls. So that's a choke point you'd be standing on, which if you needed to retreat, you could easily do that and throw down 2 or 3 force fields and you'd be fine. And then you also could easily retreat into your natural as well with shield battery cover.
I'm nodding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's way too far exposed right now where you're standing. If you knew, however, if you knew he was here, let's say you had an observer over him, or you had a hallucinated phoenix catch him right as he was about to engage that ramp, and you moved over to the right because you knew he was there, and you wanted to fight on that choke point, that'd be totally fine. But standing there when you don't know where he is made no sense. And now, right now, so you can see your army is really guarding your 3rd. It's really close to your 3rd, and it's really far away from your 4th. So and he's going for the Nexus. So again, you want to have equal distance between bases, and I would say maybe even favor than base that's newer a little bit more, which is why I said the ramp would make sense on the base of the ramp or the top of the ramp.
Okay.
Because if your 4th gets hit, or sorry, if your 3rd gets hit, the battery cannon that's already established and the gateway wall that's already established, that buys you 15 seconds of time for shit to die in front of the Nexus. He's most likely not going to just run past all of that and dive on the Nexus because all that does to Zerg then, unless it's just Zerglings, and he doesn't care if they die. Because what happens then is if Zerg just, say, has 20 Roaches just walk by your gateways and go to the back of your middle line at your 3rd, all that does then is puts him to a corner where if you run your probes away, you can just go kill all of his army. And it gives you opportunity to go counterattack him then. You know what I mean? So most Zergs would be I want to have a bit of an escape. I don't want to just be fully committed and die. So I need to make sure that can happen. I don't want to just be stuck. So they're going to probably kill your gateways. But over here on your gateway, on your 4th base, that has no SimCity at all. It easily could be oh, kill the Nexus and escape from the top side and nothing can happen. So, yeah, the fact that he gets Lings on your Nexus, this is just so much free damage that your Nexus eats. I mean, luckily it's only shield damage, but that was 500 damage that just ate before a reaction. And if that was either better upgraded Lings, more Lings, or mixed with... If he actually brought his Roaches with that, his Roaches are just sitting there. If he brought his Roaches with that, he could have escaped just like he did, and he could have actually killed that Nexus. And then now that you're going Skytoss against Zerg, this is when I would say you want to go charge lots. This is now a good charge lot time.
So that's what the top, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't mind. I think it's fine that you're doing charge lot timings now. Or actually, you know what? Not really. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's actually bad. And the reason why, this is why I would say I'm not a big fan. You're super low on supply, and that is scary. If you're this low in supply and you're gonna take the army you've been building up to this point to now just go do massive run buys, which is exactly why I would say just to fix this, just don't open charge lots. If you know you're gonna sit here defensively on them, it doesn't make sense against Zerg to do that. Because Zerg is gonna like if the Zerg just goes for Banelings, you just die.
Okay.
So, but later on, if you started making charge lots now, when you start making the Skytoss transition, with that combination being paired together, that does make sense. It's just that it made no sense to open charge lots and then
It's too early.
yeah.
Okay.
Because like you don't have an army now. Like his army size is like 100 supply, a real 100 supply army. Because it also includes like his queens. His Zerglings also suck ass. But this Roach Ravager is what I mean. The Roach Ravager is about 100 supply worth right now. That's a big fucking Roach Ravager army. And the fact that you have the army at your 4th base right now, and that's, again, it has Zealots in it. That's 7 Zealots, which is 14 supply. Take those away. You have 4 Colossus, 2 Stalker, 2 Immortal, 2 Sentry. That is an army that is worth literally like 36 supply. So you have really like 36 supply versus 100 right now. Which is fucking scary. But I mean, he backs off, so that's thank God, because now it's just buying you time. That is what charge lots will do if you know if you can get it going like this. So I mean that's nice, but yeah, your actual standing army. If he just engaged you, he would have just ran your ass over. But now, if these carriers get out, I mean, you're going to be totally fine.
So I don't often transition to Skytoss. That's something I've started doing. Do you start your mothership at like right about now, like when the first carriers come out, or wait for like the first 6?
I would say you prioritize carriers until all your Stargates are under construction. Like if you have all the Stargates pumping carriers, then you can make a mothership, and that's fine. But
Okay.
definitely don't prioritize mothership first and then start making carriers. You want to make carriers first because carriers are gonna definitely do more DPS, and it's what you need when you start making carrier. Like when you start going Skytoss and you start dropping supply of other units and you go into carrier instead, you really need the DPS, or else you will die. Also, this guy, the way I feel like the reason why you're not dying here is because the way he corrosive biles is, he keeps throwing it everywhere, and he misses like 8 biles, and he hits you with 1, and you're not even moving. Like, he throws it all over the place in front of your army. Like, he hopes you're going to walk into it, but then he doesn't back up to make you walk into it. He just stands there. So, he misses all of his biles repeatedly. Yeah, now at this point, you're definitely going to win the game because this dude just made, like, fucking 35 Ravagers, which means he has no bank, and now you have carriers. And at this point, I would say this too, okay? This is a big... I'm actually glad I'm watching this, though. And you can still learn something from this right now, even though I feel like you've already kind of won the game. Don't ever move your carriers like this by themselves, because this is how you can throw the game now. Because your opponent he just gave you so much opportunity to do something like expand and take a 5th base. I love that. I love that you're expanding again. I would honestly love you to take a 6th base as well right now. I would be like, yeah, why not? Take another base. Go up to 80 probes. Make more gas. Like, get all your shit going. Make some Archons with your carriers. That'd be great. Make some cannons and, like, you know, make cannons and batteries at all of your bases to make Zerg's life fucking miserable if he tries to counterattack any of your expansions. That would all be really good. But right now, if you attack when you have like 2 carriers or 3 carriers out, and you kind of just like roaming the map, it's really scary because if the Zerg player just makes a ratio of 3-to-1 corruptor to carrier, he's going to kill your carrier. And it's not hard for him to make 6 corruptors right now. Even though he just wasted a shitload of his economy by making a ton of ravagers. I mean, you can make 600 gas pretty fast with like 5 active bases. So, realistically, he only has 3 because he's not mining gas from his 4th and his 5th. But still, I mean, you know he has 5 bases. Or at the very least, you know he has 4. But I mean, the fact is, he could easily make corruptors, is all I'm trying to say. Like, he could easily make a few corruptor, and you're giving him the opportunity right now to kill your carrier as they're really exposed.
Yeah.
Carriers are an exponential power army, not a linear power army. So this army is, like, way worse than what it could become. Like, this is actually weak as fuck right now. This is not worth 12 supply of an army. This is worth, like, against corruptor, 12 supply of corruptor versus 12 supply of carrier is, like, the Protoss army is really valued there at, like, 6 supply. It's like half of what it's really worth. It's so bad early on. But then once, if you have like 100 supply of carrier versus 100 supply, like carrier plus like Archon versus like 100 supply of corruptor, the Protoss army suddenly then is worth like 150 supply. Because it literally grows, like, it just, it explodes. It becomes so fucking powerful later on once you have more of it. So yeah, I feel like you could totally lose your carrier right now. And I feel like you're going to. Okay, you recall. That's good.
You're good.
But then the other carrier dies. So just honestly, like, I don't mind the charge and run by. That's great. Do charge and run by right now. That's perfect. But do not send your carriers out until you actually have the ideal army of, like, we're talking like 5 Archons, 1 mothership, maybe like 2 observers, and just mass carrier, which will be like probably 15 carrier. Like, now if you defend your base here, you're totally fine. If he pisses on your Nexus, I mean, you could, or your Stargate, you should win this fight, no problem. Like, you'll lose some units, but you win that fight. Because, again, you just have so much supply there, and that's great. And now if you just, I would say, even though you just killed that, I would totally even tell you, yeah, just keep waiting. Because you're the one who's going to win the game if you get to that point where you have a death ball. So if you move out, you're giving us, like, look at your base on the bottom right. Okay, I'm glad you made Zealots. But right now, what you should definitely be doing is just making sure you make the Zerg's life hard as fuck, where you go, you know what? Let's make like 6 batteries and like 8 cannons at my bases, like bottom right, that are totally exposed and have nothing at it. Because if you make, like, again, like, it's like 6, 7, 8 cannons, 5, 6 batteries at it, that's so much defense potential against Ling run buys, and it's so much time that it buys you to deal with other things like roaches and ultras and whatever. And if you just make something like, let's say, a Dark Shrine as well, if it is a big fat fucking attack where it's like a large chunk of Zerg's army, you always have the ability to make DTs, because a lot of times, this even happens in GM, but I guarantee it happens all the time in Platinum and below. If someone attacks you with like an Overseer and like 30 fucking roaches, they're gonna let their Overseer run into the cannons and it's gonna die. Because it's, at this point in time, there's so much shit going on that it's like, okay, I don't have time to like babysit an Overseer and make sure it's in range to detect shit, but not also die to cannons. Like, and also the Overseer doesn't have an A-move command like roaches do, where it stops on an attack radius. It has no auto attack, so it literally flies all the way into wherever you're told to go. So it would probably fly into cannons and die. And if you're like, oh, that's too many units for my cannons to deal with, I'll make 4 DTs. You're not going to make a lot of them. Just make a couple. Just say like 4, maybe 5, and you're done. 3. You don't got to make like 20 DTs or something like that. It's excessive. And you could literally have those DTs kill roaches as roaches are trying to kill cannons. Or same thing with ultras. You could fucking destroy ultras with DTs if they can't see them. And then if it's just like pure Zergling, your cannons will probably be able to handle it. But if you're like, it looks a little scary, there may be a little too many Zerglings there, make like 5 Zealots or like 6 Zealots. And you're suddenly fine. It just makes it to where your expansions are like never going to die. And right now, this base on bottom right, it looks very vulnerable to dying if your opponent, you know, did a run by. If your army suddenly is on the left side of the map like it is, and you're like, oh shit, run by. And you just recalled to save your carriers, and you're like, oh, well, my base is fucking dead. Like, that's how you're going to lose the game again. So the priority right now is to make expansions and guard expansions, because late game is all about who can maintain more money. As what it, the whole, that is literally StarCraft late game. That if you can understand that concept, that will take you all the way to GM and pro level. That is StarCraft late game, maintaining economy. So you want to, that in your favor right now, cannon battery is how you maintain economy. And while you can also do charge and run bys and just make your death ball and sit defensively until you have it. And yeah, like I would say, okay, good. I would definitely want you to have your army a bit more defensively postured, and you are now. That's good. I don't want you to make stalkers now though, and I actually really highly do not want you to have zealot or stalker in your army at this point. If you do have zealot stalker, like don't make stalker at all. Stop make as soon as you go Skytoss, literally stalker goes out the fucking window. Stop making that unit ever. They never make it again. It's so bad. It's just a waste of supply at this point.
The reason I did that was I didn't think I had a lot of gas, and so I like tried to do some archons. I did that, and I was like, okay, I've got these gateways sitting here, and I don't want more zealots. Let's make something.
Wait, you said you made stalkers because you didn't have enough gas for archon?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And I knew there were corruptors because I'd already seen that.
that's good that you said that, because this is another concept that I want you to understand. That's time to do a zealot run by. Do not waste your gas on shitty units. If you don't have enough gas to make carrier, that means it's definitely not the time, and you don't have enough carrier to be happy with it. Like you're not ready to max out yet. Don't move out. Stay defensive, because your defensive engagements will go a lot better. They'll be a lot more effective. And if you just make something that costs no gas, and you go attack the edge of the map with it, that's great, because now suddenly, even if you throw those minerals away, what they do is they buy you time to mine more gas to make a bigger death ball. At worst case scenario, your zealots go across the map and just die. But that's still good for you because it makes him on his side of the map, which buys you time to make carriers. But if you were like best case scenario, your zealots, you send like zealots on the left, zealots on the right. One section of them dies, one section of them kills like a fucking base, and you kill like 8 drones or 10 drones and a hatchery. You're like, cool, I just slowed him down a lot. Now you reduce his good economy that he has because you limit one of his new bases, and you throw away a bunch of zealots, which is fine because you're not really starving for minerals here. What you're starving for is really gas. And then it gives you time to make carriers again. But if you make stalkers, you waste more time because you just wasted more gas on stalker. Because like for instance, right now, the fact that you made 7 stalkers is the equivalent of 350 gas, which is like 1.5 carriers in gas. Which is, that's definitely a waste of your gas. So never make shitty units at this point. You don't need to. Like, yeah, don't make stalker. Zealot run-bys are always a good idea at this point. And if your gateways are idle, just know this too. If your gateways are idle at this point, it's not the end of the world. At that point now, gateways are not your priority anymore. They were, but they are not anymore. Your priority is actually your Stargate, and I would say you should care more about your Stargates being active than your gateways being active. That makes
that's
way more
something
sense.
I'm starting to notice. Yeah, because I've been making too many tier 1 things, and I'm like, man, I gotta start swapping, because I only make like 1 Robo Bay if I'm going heavy Robo 2, so I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, like it's... The Robo Bay is a little bit different, though, because Robo Bay pairs well with gateway units. Like, it makes sense to make stalkers with that or something. Or charge lots or sentries. Or like, gateway units to support Robo makes a lot of sense. You don't want to have pure, like, immortals only. Because, that army just will get fucking owned by mutas. Like, you need support of gateway with other armies. But Skytoss needs no support by anything except Templar Tech, which is Archon. Which you have, which I love that you're making. But you can honestly as well, like, maybe don't go to like 7. If you do go to 7,
5, right?
yeah, try to go to 5. 7's okay, but yeah, just don't overdo it, because the more Archon you have, it just gets kind of redundant, and it's like too much damage. It's like I have a hammer to kill you, or I have a fucking like rocket launcher, and either one will work. And like if you're killing like a spider or something, or, like okay, like a horrible analogy. It was really bad. But you get the point. Like,
I gotcha.
Yeah, five
Yeah.
5 does the job. You don't need to overdo it. It just limits your carrier count, which you want more of.
You can't half shot stuff? Come on.
Yeah, man. Like, I really need to make sure it works. But yeah, your army right now, I'd say, is very carrier light. 7 carrier is not what you want to be aiming at. You want to be like double that, like 14, 15, 16, something around there is where you want to be.
Well, since I just saw a ton of... And he gave up. So the logic was, I saw a ton of corruptors, killed a bunch of them. I saw him make a ton more and him coming to my base. I was like, all right, well, then I'm just going to base trade you, because corruptor's going to do crap versus what I can do with this army.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that. That's not a bad choice. Like, the fact that he's not actually at his base with corruptor defensively, and he's like in your base, that's opportunity for you to either kill the corruptor, because he's literally over your batteries and over your base, and you can easily take advantage of him that way. Or that's opportunity for you to do what you just did, which is go, okay, cool, I'll just go kill your base now, because you can kill a Nexus with like your Corruptor Piss, and I'll just kill your whole base. Like, fine. And you could even, at this point, I would say, if this happened and your opponent literally did something where, let's just say he had each corruptor like do caustic spray on one building at a time, and you don't have cannons in the area, which is also, if you had cannons, this is why it's really important, because you could fuck someone over that does shit like that. But if, let's just say you have no cannons and you're like, you know what, I'll go counterattack, and let's say as you counterattack, some of your units die, not a lot, but let's say like 20 supply gets opened up, okay, for you. At that point in time, I would be like, you know what, it'd be okay now if you make Stalker. If your opponent's trying to be doing something really greedy where like one corruptor per building is trying to kill all of your Stargates, all of your gateways, your core, all of your Nexus, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill these in like 3 minutes or 2 minutes, but it's going to all die. I'd be like, yeah, if you make like 10 Stalkers right now to just start killing corruptors as each one of them individually tries to kill one of your buildings at a time, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and like, that is like the only time I would ever say it would make sense to make Stalkers, because they could start killing Stalkers quickly in your base and it would make him leave. But the second he leaves, I'd be like, now go suicide those Stalkers. Otherwise, otherwise it makes no sense to make them. All right, now we're getting kind of high on time. I want to make you a build really fast.
So one thing you didn't talk about was that I actually kind of thought you would touch on is I didn't kill any creep at all, like the whole game. Like,
yeah,
didn't even bother.
I don't give a shit. If you're going for a death ball, it's not that big of a deal. Like,
okay.
Map control is something I do want you to have eventually, and that's something you could definitely do with charge lots. Like, for instance, this is just a simple concept. You do a charge lot run by, you go to his third base or something. You go deep into his fucking base on like the left side of the map. As you do that, you could use your army, or maybe don't use your army unless it's like fully fucking deathballed out with like a Skytoss army, with like a mothership and all that stuff. But if you really want to like make something work, maybe send like 2 zealots and an observer around, have an observer like follow a zealot, and like have zealots like move around the creep or something like that, like, or in your area, like on the right side. Just be like, oh, kill a line of creep really fast, cool, and then come back, and then your zealot run by keeps him busy while you just killed like 3 screen lengths of creep with 2 zealots and an observer. Like, you could totally do shit like that if you wanted to, but just know.
I tried to do.
Or go ahead, you go.
I tried to do like more what you'd done in BDGM, where you had a couple Archons. You're like, okay, the army's about big enough to go out, and like I felt like I got caught so many times when I started to move out with just Lings with surround or like stuff like that. I'm like, this creep's not worth this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to really like know where he is to make that safe. If you just do it blindly, you'd have a chance to get punished every time. So that's why that makes sense in that regard. But I would say for you, creep isn't your biggest concern right now, only because you're the one who has the end game win condition, not him. The fact that he has good creep spread does not mean he wins. The fact that you have a death ball means you win, because I guarantee if you have a good Archon carrier mothership combo at the end of the game with good upgrades and also good static D, that's why I said that I touched on that, because that was definitely way more important, because you don't want to lose your economy. That's how you get screwed there. If you have a situation where your army is so god tier that he cannot engage it, and every time he tries to counterattack you, he can't engage that either, because he's like, oh my god, there's fucking DTs and cannons and batteries at every base, because he just warps DTs in and he has cannon battery killing everything as well. And then every time I try to engage his army, I just die to mothership Archon carrier. Like, I can't do anything. Like, it makes the Zerg feel helpless. And if you do that's how you win. Like, you're just like, oh, creep is everywhere, but I just literally move one line through your base and I kill all the creep in that line because I have observers with my army, and I just killed what took you 15 fucking minutes, and I killed that in an move. And I killed like a whole line of it, which, took you a long time. And it, like, you just do that a few times and suddenly this creep's just gone. Like, you can kill creep with the death ball super easy. It's not hard because again, you have an observer just following you around.
Yeah. Okay. So then, like, for me to practice this, what's like you gave a lot of tips, right? Like, what's number 1 thing to focus on, number 2 thing to focus on, so I can like make them habits.
I'm gonna do that right now. Okay. I'm gonna give you a game. I'll give you a rundown of what I think you should be doing, and then I think this will help you a lot. All right, and then I'll just have you watch it, and I'll just give you a full-on example. All right, Zerg. Okay, so this build, defensive, because you were defensive. You opened up just defensive Colossus. You did not ever do a timing, which is fine, and then you went Skytoss. So I think this build will work better for you, and then I'll tell you about like positioning and how we should stand around and what we should be doing, and then once we get to the death ball phase, what you should be doing then.
Okay.
And it's literally all about just making the Zerg's life harder to attack you every time. That's all it is.
Yeah, I haven't played any other race practically at all. So like,
That's okay.
getting into their mindset's really hard.
Yeah, it's totally fine. It's not required, but just know that like SimCity is your best friend, as Protoss. That's definitely what needs to be. SimCity first is what's important, and then positioning second is what's important. Because if you fuck either one of those up, Zerg, you always give Zerg an opportunity to kill you. Because it's very fragile how fast things can die for Protoss if you get caught out of position. Okay, so we started our gate, our pylon gate gas with one chrono boost, and then we're gonna literally make probes all the way to 19. And once I get to 19, I'm gonna rally my Nexus to my my natural. And now I'm at 19, and now I rally to my natural. So probe 20 is the one who, like, when I'm at 20 supply, I'm gonna take my Nexus essentially, and I'm gonna stop making probes just for, like, I'm just gonna let the probe kind of like stop here for just a second, like the production on 20, and I'm just gonna save for a second. Okay, this is the only time I would ever say to do this. If you don't do this, it's also, if you just keep making probes, I'm okay with that as well. But this is something I would say you could start doing if you're gonna start going towards like diamond and shit. But we can make our you know, our Nexus. We can make our core, and there you go, boom. And now go back to resuming probe production, and then do not chrono boost again yet. We're gonna now make our gas. We'll make a second pylon right now with this probe. And now when the pylon is done, we'll go into what's it called? A chrono boost again. And now
So at this point, I'd probably be -1, right? Because I go scout and then leave a probe tucked away.
honestly, with this build, you don't even, like, just all you need to scout for is if he's all-inning you. Like, is he one basing you or two basing you? You don't need to leave a probe over there.
Okay.
And I would, okay, I'm gonna pause this really fast because I want to ask you a question. Do you want to still do 2 adept pressure, or do you want to just fucking play defensive faster third base pacing? Like, what do you prefer?
I would prefer to do the pressure because I feel like it's what I often see in like diamond and higher, right? I want to practice like what the next level is.
Okay, so just know that it's DT pressure is not always required. Okay, it's not always required every game. You don't have to do, or so I said DT pressure. Adept pressure is not always required. It's not like, oh, this is mandatory to be diamond now, or mandatory to be masters now. It's really not. If you want to play that way, if you want that to be your style, that's totally fine, and I'm not going to say it's wrong. But adept pressure builds, just in general, they do pair better with Stargate openers. I'm just going to throw that out there. They don't really pair the greatest with defensive Colossus openers. So if you're looking, or go ahead, you go.
Yeah, so if we do like 2 adepts into Oracle into Robo, like that style, I'd be good with that.
Okay.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say it doesn't really make a lot of sense to go for adept pressure and go robo defensive, but if you want to go for the higher aggro style of now Oracle and adept, again, I'm not gonna say it's wrong. It's just highly fucking requiring of your actions. It's very, very intensive APM, because if you don't do damage with it, or if you just engage with it the first time and always let it die, that is not great. Again, if we're talking about going to a higher level. So like the idea is feign, like you have to just, you're gonna have to start understanding the concept of correct forms of pressure. And if you're like, for instance, if you have adepts phasing into the Zerg's base, and you're like, this is now gonna kill me if I do this, canceling it, but having the foresight to keep being annoying is what you'd want to do there, and not just be like, you know what, fuck it, go for it, kill as many drones before I die. Because I'm just looking to do a quick harass and then lose my units. Like, that's not good to do that if we're talking higher level. You want to maintain units as long as you can, actually. Which means it's going to take longer for you to have to multitask. So I don't mind that if you want to try to do that. And I can make a build for you that right now. I can alter the build right now that will go into something like that. But just again, really, you have to really understand the concept that if, like, let's just say one Oracle gets to his base and you lose the Oracle, that fucking sucks. Like, that's not actually like, oh, I killed 3 drones and it died. That's not good. Like, you'd want to make sure that thing lives for like 5 minutes if you can.
So what route were you gonna go?
I was gonna give you just defensive Colossus into Skytoss because your style. Here's the thing, if you go for harass, it pairs better with timing builds, and your build is not a timing build. Your build is defensive death ball, and defensive death ball pairs better with straight up macro and defensive play.
Okay, so let's go for death ball. Like we'll go that route then.
Yeah, because like it makes more sense for harass to pair with, like, now you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna do 8 gateway timing, and you're gonna die to this. Okay, well, so we'll just make this a death ball build then. And I think this, honestly, the last thing I'll say is I think this is going to be better for you to actually, if your goal is to, like, I want to hit diamond and then work from that, this will get you 2 diamond faster, in my opinion. And this style is something you need to learn as well. It's not like, well, this is just like entry level and then you'll never use this again. If you actually understand how to use Skytoss, that is like the ultimate form of Protoss power. That is literally the god tier Protoss. If you can do that, you can get GM with that. So, all right. Well, so we'll go with this then, defensive style.
My favorite thing about Skytoss is the guys that are like, "Good job, A moving." I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, no,
Love the salt. I love it.
Yeah, right. All right. Actually, I can't resume it. You have to resume it since you're a referee.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
That's all good.
All right, going.
All right, so I will go for a second gateway a little bit after I make the robo. We'll just go robo first defensively then, since again we want to have a quick Colossus to be able to take a third with. And then we'll now go for a second gateway. And at this point too, if you haven't scouted like a 12 pool or something like that, again, it doesn't matter if you wait to scout until your sentry is out to actually see, like, oh cool, I can now see he's going for some weird timing or some shit like that. Okay, all right. What our natural's like about what it is right now, where we're like a little bit more than halfway saturated, like 9, 10 probes or whatever. Great time to take your gases at that base. We can now quickly start our Robo Bay as well. So we're like rushing Robo Bay with this instead of going for charge and shit like that. And now, once your sentry has enough energy, you can definitely throw out a scout and go see what's going on with the Zerg. You can always overcharge the battery if you get attacked. That's always, you know, that's why just one is like one blind battery is always nice.
Research completed.
And then now we're about ready to take our Colossus in a second here. I somehow fucking supply blocked myself, which is wonderful. I'm supply blocked for probably like 8 seconds. But it's okay. It's not the end of the world. This shit like this happens, right? It's actually
Order's not going to change.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, now when you start a Colossus, this needs to be chrono boosted. Like basically chrono boost your gateway once for the stalker, and then you're good. And then chrono boost your Nexus. And as soon as your robo's done, stop chrono boosting your Nexus for a second here, and save energy for chrono boosting only on your robo. And this will also keep you having energy in case you get hit by a timing right now to be able to overcharge your battery. This is very important. And keep making stalkers every time you can, like just normally, out of no chrono boost. And the second your Colossus is done, we're going to move immediately to your third then. And Colossus is about out. And Colossus is now out. And now what we can do is we can take every stalker, except for like one, and a probe, and go to your third base with it. And take this one stalker that's not in the group and put it in the doorway immediately after and have it hold position, just like that. And let it just kind of be. That way you don't get run by it. Now make the Nexus as soon as you can. Make like a pylon and make like another pylon. And then you can put your army in the tucked in portion like right here. And have like one stalker like right there. And you just made yourself super defensible against bullshit timings that Zerg can do. Once you have this situation, or go ahead, you go.
Do you recall if it looks like it's hairy?
Yeah, you can totally recall if it looks like really bad. But I'm not gonna lie. There's very few things that are gonna kill you right now. If the Zerg is not been like setting up to all on you the whole time. And you'd probably notice he's going to all on you if your first hallucination scout goes across the map and you're like, shit, this guy's got like 15 roaches or something like that.
Well, like in this game, right? Since we didn't scout a second base, I'd be like, man, he must be doing like a 1 base time.
Oh yeah. Okay, so if
it was real,
if it was a 1 base player, yes, it would be more like a. You would the only way that would make sense is he would attack you in that phase of the game where I said, do not chrono boost your probes anymore. And once your robo's done, chrono boost just your Colossus and save the rest in case the Zerg does attack you. Because at that point, if the Zerg doesn't attack you still by then and he's 1 base aligning you and now you have Colossus, like even if you moved out like this, you'd still be fine because you just have more pacing than he does in terms of units. Like you just have more shit, if that makes sense.
yeah, okay. More stuff beats less stuff. Got it.
Yep. And now at this point, once your third's done, you can go back to chrono boosting your Nexus like once or twice again. You can always be like, hey, force field, cool. Whatever. And but I'm gonna pause one more time because I just want to kind of go over this before we get out of hand. So what I just did was I opened up with a really fucking fast Colossus, and my first Colossus is how I took my 3rd base. The second I made my pylons, the way I set up those pylons like I talked about, I put the one stalker between the pylon and the Nexus. I put my other stalker between the gas and mineral line. So I had like this weird, if he engages me with a lot of lings, it creates these awkward choke points that Zerg units will, the AI is really stupid. It'll get stuck in those choke points a lot. And if he wraps around all the way, I had a sentry that I could have force shielded him with as well. Like to create like reduced surface area again. The only thing you want to be careful about there is not force fielding on top of your Colossus because your Colossus will instantly smash the force field. So make sure you can put it a little bit away from your Colossus. Like make a little bit of an awkward choke point for him to engage with, but don't put it on your Colossus. And the second the pylons were done, I made a battery, which now means this army is really, it's just not going to die. It's very unlikely going to be killed. And then as soon as I had that done, I made gateways. And look at how I made the gates compared to how you made the gates. I made the gates in a way where I don't have a pylon in the side of the door. I have just straight up gates from the side of the wall to the Nexus. That's important because the pylon wall you had was very vulnerable to just being broken by anything, really.
Yeah, so then in this scenario, right, like what's the number of roaches that like the Zerg could potentially have, and is that worrisome for you as a Protoss?
If the Zerg is going, so the more roaches that Zerg could have would be hatchery tech roaches, which would be slow roaches. And if the Zerg was literally just going mass fucking roaches, he could have a potential of maybe like 25 roaches right now or 30 roaches. If he was going for layer roaches, he'll probably have more like 18 to 20. Like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there. It depends how many drones he cuts as well. So that's why I was telling you the other game, or the replay you had, when I was like, look at his mineral line. Does it look scary or not? Like the less drones he has, especially compared to you, if you're like, I'm fully saturated, this fucking guy has 12. Like out of 20, or 12 out of 22, because 22 is literally full saturation, gas and mineral line included. And you're like, okay, well, he has no investment in economy. This looks kind of threatening. That is definitely a moment where you should, like, you should just not be exposed. So what I just did right now, and if I got attacked by roaches right now, I guarantee I'd be fine. And this is why. As soon as I made a Colossus, I took my 3rd, I did my whole setup like I just did. But then as soon as my setup was ready to go, and now if you look at my resources, I just made a bunch of gates. I just made a lot of pylons. I just made a Nexus. I just made a lot of probes. I just made a battery. All of these things cost a fuckload of minerals. And what I can do now is I made like 3 more sentries. I made like 2 sentries or 2 or 3 more sentries at my natural, or sorry, at my 3rd, and I made like another sentry at my natural. Just so I have a total, right? You can have a total right now of like 4 or 5 sentries, and have like 1 or 2 in your natural base behind your wall you already have, and have like 2 or 3 in your 3rd base that's more exposed. So you want a little bit more in your 3rd, and at least 1 or 2 in your natural, if that makes sense. That way, if you get if you get attacked, you're not just like open, and you're like, fuck, okay, I could die. So you have the ability to force field something. And now all my rally points of my robo are still in my natural. Now I'm gonna leave my army. I'm gonna literally at this point in time, this is the crucial time for Protoss to not die, to weird all ins while you take your 3rd base. But right now, all I'm doing is I'm cranking out Colossus units. I am cranking out units out of my gateways. I made the round of sentries like I just did, and I'm gonna go right back into making fucking stalkers again for now, right after this. And then I'm going to let them fill in my 3rd base and my natural. I am not gonna have them fill in the gap in between. So if he does hit one or the other, I have the ability to use force fields on one or the other and have the other side reinforce the backline if I need to. Otherwise, I can just guard it with the door. Because like a lot of times what a Zerg will do is they're like, hit the natural. Oh, force field. Okay, hit the third. That's Zerg mindset right there, 100%. So if you're like, hey, I have both bases have an army behind the wall, Colossus included. I have the ability to AoE your army behind the wall. This is totally fine. And this phase of the game is very, very minor. It's very limited how long it has to be like this. This is the most awkward phase of the game for you that will exist because you need to just have the patience to sit behind your wall. That's all it is. Don't just run out unless you know you're going to take a good fight. So when it would make sense to take a good fight would be if you were able to force field like a chunk of his army into the wall and you killed it. And you're like, cool, I just got like a free like 8 roaches. This is great. Well, suddenly that's a lot less pressure for you to move out from the other side and have the other side of whatever, either your natural or your third, vice versa, whatever goes to reinforce the other side, whatever's being hit, have the other side reinforce it. If you just trapped and killed a bunch of roaches, which is very totally possible. Go ahead.
So I fight some Zergs that are like ultra greedy. So like in this setup, right, if I'm taking a third, sometimes they're on 5 base because they're just like, it's a Protoss, he's never going to attack me. And so they just go like super greedy. And then like, even if I do max, they remax so much faster because they went ultra greed. Like what's the limit of like when I should try to throttle that?
You shouldn't right now. Yeah, that shouldn't be your goal because I'm going to tell you right now, even in Diamond, no one can really do that to you. Like, because here's why this makes sense. If you just don't get throttled yourself and your goal is to go Skytoss, you'll hit it so fucking fast. And you have stalkers that can deal with all versatile forms of pressure. So if it's like mutas, you'll be fine. And we'll talk about how to deal with mutas. If it's anything else on the ground, you'll be fine. You have Colossus and you have Stalker Sentry. Like I'm going to tell you right now, there is nothing that should feel threatening to you as Protoss. Because you're the one who is going to go for the death ball. And there's not a single person in Diamond League that can deal with that death ball. Not a single person. Pretty much not even in Masters League that can deal with that death ball. Like, and the crazy thing is, there's almost even no one in GM that can deal with that death ball as Zerg. Almost every Zerg has the mindset of, if Skytoss happens, I just fucking quit the game. Like, it's just over. I can't do anything about it. Because it is really hard to deal with for Zerg. It's super fucking hard to deal with. So if that's your goal, is to learn how to play Skytoss, it's all about getting to Skytoss and that you have the win condition. So everything Zerg does, who gives a fuck? Because you're making an army that can trade like 10 times to 1 value. You're like, oh cool, I'll lose 10 supply for your 100 every time. Good luck. Okay.
All right, awesome.
So yeah,
ready for unpause?
Yeah. Just to reiterate one more time though. At this point in time, this is when we're going to make the transition now to a deeper, well-rounded ground army, and then we're going to get ready to go Skytoss at like 150 supply. Going Skytoss right now is too early. We go Skytoss off of 4 bases. We do not do it off of 3 bases. We make sure we're really stable on the ground right now off of 3 bases, which is why right now for you, if you did get attacked by anything from Zerg and you're like afraid of the remax potential, you would have such a strong army to work with at this point in time, which would make you safe. So as soon as we take our 4th base, which is when our 3rd mineral line is fully saturated, which is really close, that's when we're going to move out with our armies and reconverge them. And the same spot I told you about, which is like on the ramp in the heart of your base, it gives you the ability to like defend everything all at once. And then we make all of our transitions and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it goes. Like, but again, if you got attacked right now while you made your gateway wall and all that shit, that's when it would be like, okay, I need to make sure I can defend myself behind my walls. That's the only thing I want you to understand is I don't want you to try and fight a fight right now, literally not even using a battery or a wall, just because you have a 3rd. I do not want you to think that that's what you should be doing.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Should I make any modifications if he starts coming in with lurkers?
This is too early for lurkers. This is way too early for lurkers. The only way there could be lurkers here right now is if he literally skipped Zergling speed and just rushed a layer and was like, I'm getting the fastest lurkers ever. And if he did that, he wouldn't even have, he would not even have lurker range because this is way too fucking early for hive tech lurkers, for the upgrades. So your Colossus could literally just fucking outrange the lurkers. Then you'd be fine.
Okay, so do the lurkers kind of usually, if you're pacing right, does Skytoss hit about when you'd have lurkers anyway then?
Yeah, for Zerg to have a scary amount of hive tech lurkers, yes, you should already have Skytoss then.
Okay. Cool.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
All right, going.
Okay, and now, so now we're getting ready to take our gases out of our expansion, and we're going to take our forge and our council double forge, and now that we have a good standing army, we're now going to take our fourth base because again, yeah, we're fully saturated. Now we want to take a fourth. So everything's looking a lot more stable for Protoss. We can kind of situate our army over on the right side. I already have a probe going. And there we go. Take like a pylon and a pylon. And just keep making stalkers and shit. And you can throw out a couple who stations if you really want to. That's totally fine. Just to, you know, see what's going down at Zergtown. If you know, you don't have to do that. Because again, your goal right now is just to understand how to pace the build. It's not really to perfectly scout everything you see. And then at this fourth base, I would say just make a battery. You don't need to make a bunch of gateways at it because you're going for Skytoss anyways, so don't go crazy on batteries. Sorry, don't go crazy on gateways is what I meant to say. And now that we're close to 150 supply, this is the moment where I would say, honestly, once you get to like 4 Colossus, you can kind of stop there. And now I would say you can start throwing down a Stargate, throw down a Templar Archives, and keep chrono boosting your upgrades from this point on. So we're going all full upgrades now. We're doing double forge upgrades, we're doing cyber core upgrades, and we're doing Twilight Council upgrades. And the reason why we're doing the core already is because we're already getting ready to go Skytoss now. And I would say do like maybe like one more round of stalkers. Just keep making stalkers for now because charge lots are useless as fuck right now. Like you're not actually going Skytoss yet, so you're probably gonna max one time on this army first, and then you'll go Skytoss out of it. And now our base is fully saturated, so again you can take like another base. I would say probably take this base instead. The reason why is because you have a gateway wall at your other base, which buys you more time. So if you relocate over here, which your army can locate kind of where we are right now, as you take like a 6th base, and you're good to go. And you can take your gases. You can take your, you know, make another round of stalkers. You're almost maxed out. You can now make your Skytoss, you know, composition transition here. Keep chrono boosting your upgrades. And you're just literally defensively playing. You do not give a fuck about attacking right now. That's not your goal. It's to kill Zerg right now, because that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to go Skytoss. And you can go up to like, let's say like 5 Stargates, that's fine. And now we're done with those buildings. So like, you know, Skytoss is gonna happen now. And our upgrades are now going into charge. And we're almost at that maxed out point of Stalker Colossus with some Observer. At this point now, I would say you could do something like this. Send out a couple of hallucinated Phoenixes. Like, just like I just did. Have them like one go around the left side, one go around the right side of the map. And our probe count's also looking fucking perfect, so that's good. But if you see a Zerg that has like, you know, really greedy bases. Actually, I'm gonna pause it because I want to talk about this. I got this is the last time we'll pause because I really want to make sure you understand this without me having to like pace it super fast. This is the point where you're gonna you actually do want to launch an attack with your army, but you do not want to fully commit to fucking dying here essentially. So if you see a Zerg player that has been very greedy and has done something like gone for, you know, 6 bases or 5 bases, 6 bases, 7 bases, whatever. He's got a lot of bases. And you're like, okay, this Zerg definitely has like a fuckload of drones. And he's got a really scary looking, or like a really scary looking economy, which means you could make army repeatedly, whatever. If you see a Zerg player who has as many bases as you or more bases than you at this point in time, I am totally okay with you attacking with your entire army and do what I would like to call non-committal fights where you're not trying to win the game with this army. You're literally trying to just shave off pieces of your army and his army at the same time. So the second you see him, you always fight with a way you can back off and retreat. You never just like dive the fucking base and go, I'm going to kill the heart of your Zerg's base. I'm going to go for a Spire or something like that. Don't ever dive for anything. If you see 10 drones over there, that's like, it looks so juicy. I really want to dive in there and kill those drones. Don't fucking do it. Because if you lose your army right now, if you lose the Stalker Century Colossus army we just made, you give yourself an opportunity to lose the game right now. It's not what needs to be done. Because again, you should not try to win the game right now. It's misleading. It's not what your goal is. Your goal is to control the game right now and win the game in like 5 minutes with Skytoss. So what you should be doing is always being able to retreat out of the fight. Always have the backup plan ready to leave the base. Just try to get his attention and then back the fuck out of there. So a great way you could do this, like for instance, let's say he has bottom right, okay? let's just say he is bottom right. You could position your army like in a way where, let's say you have either a hallucinated phoenix, a stalker, an observer, anything in the open on the left side where, like, see where my hallucinated phoenix is right now? Maybe go like north of that a little bit to like where that maybe the little like gray dot cliff is on the mini map between like his ramp and your ramp. That's near your 5th base and like his, like in front of his 3rd base. So you don't want him to be able to flank you, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Dude, like, look at his flank path that he could be at, which is just anything, like 1 unit, so that you know that if he starts flanking you, you back up, and you watch for that. You know you're expecting that. You want to not let that happen. And if he tries to flank you, you back the fuck up immediately, and you don't let him flank you. You go back to your base closer so that he can only engage you from like the front of your base, not behind you, behind where your base is. You don't give a shit if you can kill his base or not. That is the whole point I'm trying to make here. You just want to get his attention. You want to make him come fight you. But you want to make sure the fight, when it happens, it's advantageous for you. So you poke him and you back up. You poke him, you back up. You don't fully commit your army. And if you poke him as well, you don't even have to poke with your whole army. You could poke him with literally like 5 stalkers and blink backwards. And that'd be totally fine. Because he's going to fucking kill that, right? He's not going to just be like, oh, 5 stalkers are killing me? I don't care about that. Nothing else is happening. And it keeps saying, we're under attack. We're under attack. But you know what? I don't care. Like, no Zerg is going to do that. Every Zerg is going to go kill that. No matter what league or level they're at. They're just going to go kill what's currently attacking them. And when they do that, you want to make sure you always are the one where your back is always to your base. And there's no Zerg army between that. That is what you care about the most. Fight his army as you can, as long as there's nothing behind you. If there's going to be something behind you, zone it out and don't let it get behind you. And let him fight you little by little by little, and always have the idea when you attack him, attack, back up, attack, back up, attack, back up. And if you disengage, that's fucking great. That's not a bad thing. Repeatedly do this. And every time you're like, oh, I just lost 8 supply. I just lost 12 supply. I just lost 8 supply. I just lost 12 supply. Replace it with carrier. Replace it with carrier. Replace it with carrier. And as soon as you get to a point where you now, let's say your Colossus Stalker army is no longer worth like 100 supply, and now it's only worth like 30 supply, at that point, you could just fucking dive it. And I'd be like, I don't care. Literally just go let it die. That's totally fine. Because at that point, you've maximized time in your favor to build Skytoss. Because the problem right now is if you actually build an army like I just told you to build, it keeps you safe in the early game, and it allows you to be really greedy. Because if you notice, our 4th base and our 5th base in this game was really fucking fast. It was super greedy. But it was realistic though, because we could actually cover it. I actually have an army that can defend it. Now, if you get attacked and he's really aggressive, you can still, if you're defending your base, that's even better, because you can switch into Skytoss, and if you have all the gateways pumping, you can finish off the rest with other units. And at that point, once you start going Skytoss, like I said, it would be then you'd want to start either going into Archons or charge lots, because you're going Skytoss now. So you'd stop making stalkers then. Because if you have the ability to be like, I can make 5 Stargates and a fleet beacon, and I'm maxed out, you're not in the supreme like pressure situation where you're like, fuck, I need to make stalkers like repeatedly every time I lose units, because you already have all your infrastructure ready to go. You could easily make Skytoss then. If that does that make sense? I want to make sure that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. So then 2 questions on that. If I see him not flanking me, he's coming straight at me. I've gotten caught a couple times, so what I've started to do is just put up like a force field wall, take the base and run. Is that okay to do? Or if I see him start to move for the flank?
Do not do that. Like it makes that makes sense if you're trying to kill him right now. If your plan is to literally remake stalkers, that makes sense, because it means you're going to keep replacing what dies, and you're trying to take, like, you're trying to shove him to death at this point. It makes no sense though if you're trying to rotate your army, because you want to lose as little stalkers as possible, and all that happens if you actually shove all the way to a hatchery with your whole army is you're forcing a big fight to happen. You're literally forcing, because I want you to fight him, but I do not want you to take a big fight. I want you to take little fights that are literally going to shave your army apart. It's not going to like be like, oh, I just lost 75 supply at once. That's bad. Do not do that. Because killing a base is nice, sure, that's never a bad thing. But this Zerg could have 10 bases, or he could have 6 bases, and if you have Skytoss, you're going to win either way. Like, it doesn't matter how many bases he has. If you have maxed out Skytoss, you win the game either way. As long as you know how to set it up properly. So don't ever take big fights. That's not a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah, always take defensive fights.
So that was the question. The other one was, I know the Archons will counter the Corruptors. When there's a crap ton of Hydra out, like, what fights that well?
Colossus. if you have Colossus,
Okay,
you're
so
totally
don't
fine.
necessarily throw the Colossus away. Like keep those around for
Yeah.
if I see that.
That's why I said too, when you want to get his attention, don't use your Colossus to do that. That's why I don't want you to commit your army to do that. Because if you have like
Gotcha.
5 stalkers, you can just blink backwards and suddenly they're across the screen and they regroup with your army.
That was a
they're-
puzzle piece I was missing.
Yeah, they're,
Okay.
the stalkers are really mobile, and all I want you to do is get his attention. I do not want you to kill his base. Like if he lets you kill his base, fucking awesome. That's just great. I mean that means the Zerg is playing like shit then, and that's wonderful. But that's not your goal. Your goal is to get his attention and take defensive fights, so that you don't lose everything at once. Because I want him to lose. I want the Zerg to like chase you down, and then you get back all the way to cannon battery, and you're like, okay, well now if you really want to take this fight, this is going to be a great fight for me. And then that's obviously that's not a bad thing. But if he fights you, like he chases you for a little bit, and he kills 20 supply of you, you kill 30 supply of his, whatever, and you disengage and you back off. That's wonderful for you because every time he does that, if he's like remake 10 Hydras or 20 Hydras, and you're like remake 3 carriers or 2 carriers, that means you're winning the game. And that is winning the game little by little by little right there. And as soon as you get to a point where he's now still on Hydras and you now have 12 carriers with like 5 Archons, you have won the game. He engages you now and he's like, well, I kill 8 supply or 10 supply and you kill 100. It sucks. So that's the goal, right? That you just don't give him an opportunity to kill you in the process.
Awesome. Okay.
And then lastly, the last thing I'll say, which is the last thing I haven't touched on, is right now the only goal we have is now, again, we're looking to do, I really wanted to explain that concept of how to use your army, but all we're going to do now is we're going to make static D at every single base, and we're going to make more of it at the more exposed bases, and we're going to start making Skytoss as we start shaving our army off. That's the whole point. And we're going to keep expanding too. So we're going to make sure that we don't have like inefficient as fuck mining. So I'm going to take what I'm going to do right now. This is how I'm going to do it. I am not going to attack him just yet. I'm going to make static D at every base. I'm also going to make carriers as much as I can until I have maxed out supply, which is going to be 2 carriers. And then I'm going to start a 5th base, or start a 6th base as I go attack him and get his attention. And I'm going to try to shave parts of my army off. And then I'm going to reinforce the 6th base with static D. And I'm going to shave parts of my army off. And I'm going to keep making carriers as I do this. And I'm going to slowly transition into Skytoss. That is the whole idea of what we're doing. And we're going to, the whole time as well, I'm going to prioritize chrono boosts on, as soon as you actually start making carrier, stop chrono boosting your forges. And you're also now done chrono boosting your council because you already should have charge and you should also have blink at this point because of all the chronos we did earlier as we talked about it. Now all you're going to do is you're going to chrono boost your cyber core only for +3 weapons as fast as possible, and you're going to chrono boost your stargates. And if you make a mothership, you're going to chrono boost that nexus. That is where now all of your chronos go. Because at this point, you should already be close to 2-2, if not already 2-2 on forge upgrades. So you don't really need a chrono boost for the final 3-3, because again, 3-3 doesn't really matter for the ground army because we're trying to shave it off anyways. We're not trying to kill him here. We're trying to make a quick transition here. That's the whole point, and that's really all we're gonna do now. All right,
Awesome. Ready?
I'm good to go. And when you're good to go, okay, let's do it. So we'll make like 3 cannons and like an extra battery at my 3rd base because it's a bit more exposed. We'll make like 2 cannons at my natural. We can make them like on both sides of the nexus. 1 to cover the doorway a little bit, 1 to cover the mineral line. In the main base, we can make like 2 cannons and a battery to cover the mineral line. At my base, my 4th base, that's pretty exposed. I can make like 5 or 6 cannons and like 3 more batteries because it's very exposed. And then at my other brand new 6th base, we can make same thing. We can make like another 6, 7 cannons and like 5 batteries. And we'll do that right now. Make sure all of our mineral lines are still also really saturated properly. And now if you get attacked in the process and you're like, oh, Zerg's here, you can always recall. You can always move your army over there. Either way works. Let's just say you had to recall. Recall the heart of your Colossus because you can always blink your stalkers. And then, defend yourself. And then you can, make cannon battery at your other base again. Make like 4 cannons and like 4 or 5 batteries, 6, 7 cannons. Again, something around there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just make a good amount of static D, just like we just did right there. And then now, finally, we're going to take our last base in top left. And now we can start moving out. Let's just say we saw a 3rd base in bottom middle. And we're like, all right, let's go fucking attack that now. You can totally go do that. Keep chrono boosting your core. Keep chrono boosting your carrier. keep upgrading out of the forges, but don't chrono boost them anymore. It doesn't need to be chronoed. And as you take a fight, like you would want to stand like right here, okay? Stand defensively, and maybe even have like a stalker, again like over here, or something like that, so you know you're not gonna get flanked, and have a group of stalkers like this. Just go poke him for a second, and the second you see him, blink, go back, and disengage. Like you can throw some force fields down if you need to, and just disengage, 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 all the way back to your base. Always disengage, disengage, disengage. And let's just say as you fought, you lose, you know, a chunk of army. Because if you're disengaging, it's really hard for Zerg to kill you. It's not like, oh, Zerg can just run you over. Because the only thing Zerg has that is faster than this army, if you keep disengaging, is Zerglings. And Zerglings, when they run forward ahead of everything else, they get fucking mowed down like crazy by Colossus. It's not even fair. It's like, all Lings are all dead. And they're all dead. And you just keep disengaging, keep disengaging, keep disengaging. Again, it's really easy to disengage if you're not in the center of Zerg's base. Because you're off creep, you're way the fuck away. You're just like always ready to blink backwards and just keep force fielding, running away. You just keep, you want to keep losing bits of your army, and every time you do that, you keep chrono boosting your carrier, you keep chrono boosting your core, and you know, if you have enough supply now open, you can make a mothership. And if you ever have a little bit too much supply, let's say you took a little bit of a little too big of a fight, and you're like, okay, fuck me, I just lost, like all my carriers are being chronoed right now, and I don't have enough supply. I have too much supply open. Now you can add in charge that run by, and literally do a run by on the opposite side of the map of wherever you're trying to disengage from. And now suddenly you have a charge that run by going in to go be annoying as fuck to Zerg, and it buys you time. It might kill an expansion while you keep him busy on the other side. Yada yada yada. You keep doing this over and over and over, and eventually, once you get to a point where you have a solid carrier army, like we said, once you have like double-digit carrier count with 5 Archon, with a mothership, and a couple of observer. That is the moment where you go for the kill. And if let's just say, look how big my Sentry Stalker army is now. Once it gets to like this size, and you're like, all right, oh, this is now kind of like just a waste of supply. This is if this army dies, I'm not dead. And let's say your Stargates are all ready to go. I would say now just fucking go for it. Be like, cool, I'm gonna blink in your mineral line, and I'm gonna try and like force field your army out, whatever. Who gives a fuck? Let it die. Like do whatever you can with it and just let it die. I don't give a shit if it all dies. Like it does nothing. Because at that point, you could easily just make all your Stargates pump a whole fresh set of carrier. And you have enough carrier already as it is to where if he does attack you, if you fight over cannon battery, you're totally fine.
Okay, so like in this example, you haven't made the Archons yet, right?
You make
so
them
do
last.
You do that before last, okay.
You make them as... Because you have to realize, he's not going to go Mass Corruptor as you're doing the disengage style. And you want to make the Archon to deal with Corruptor. That's the only reason why you make them. You don't make them to deal with everything else. So he's not going to be making Corruptor as you're disengaging his base, because he's going to be prioritized on dealing with the Stalkers and the Sentries and the Colossus. Because if he makes Corruptors, then he might actually just fucking die at that point in time. Because there's going to be like, wow, he's just not really having any army every time I disengage. Like I'm actually killing him every time. Because he's got 20 Corruptors right now. So he's never going to do that. He'll never do that. So if you actually lose your whole army, and then the Zerg realizes, okay, the Zerg lost his whole army, and the next time I tried to counterattack him, because I felt like I could, because Protoss lost everything, oh, there's a lot of carriers now. And what's the Zerg reaction going to be to that? Now he's going to make Corruptor. And if you then make Archon, then it takes literally 2 seconds to make Archon, because you can just warp him in. Now you're like, oh, well, I have Archon now, and now you're ready to go kill him. So carrier is a priority first.
Okay.
And now you're at that point, like, look at my army now. This is God tier army. We have level 2, level 3 weapons being on the way, but we already have level 2 weapons being chronoed out. We have 3/3 weapons and shields on the forges being done, and you know we're about to be 3/3/3 on you know shields, weapons for both units, ground and air. So our army right now is fucking. This is super scary God tier army, and this is now when you could just honestly A-move the Zerg and kill him. And at this point too, when you actually move out with the Death Ball, highly recommend you make a Dark Shrine. It's very important. You might not need it in Diamond, but you'll definitely need it in like Masters and shit. But you can see in the top left as well, I made a bunch of battery cannon. At this point too, you could even take another base. You can start another base to like do the same thing out again. And right now, if you get counterattacked, you can always recall. And if you have a little bit of open supply, and he's like, the Zerg is just trying to avoid you, and for instance, he's going to have Ultras go attack your base, I am guaranteeing you Overseers will fly into your cannons, and they will die, and you can just make a round of DTs. And if you just make like 6, 7 DTs, 5 DTs, whatever, depending on how much shit's there, you will crush the fuck out of all of his army with DTs and cannon battery. And you always also have the ability to overcharge any battery anywhere. Whatever base gets attacked, if you're like, overcharge that battery, and now suddenly my cannons live for a long time and my DTs kill everything. This puts Zerg in a position that's like almost unwinnable. And if you get in the position where I'm right now, at anything below Masters and below, I feel like your win rate's 100%. It's, again, like I said, it's really hard for Zerg to deal with this at this stage. And it's all about getting to this stage as fast as possible, which is why I'm kind of avoiding wanting to make you go for like harassment style openers, because you will get here later if you do harass openers.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything
Awesome.
not make sense? How you feel?
No, it makes sense. I definitely will try this out and check it out, because like I've tried this a couple times, but I'm not sure what went wrong. So at least I have this VOD, right? So I'll be able to compare them.
Yeah. Alright, man. Well,
Thank you.
Dude, thank you, man. Save the replay so you just always have the reference to work with. And yeah, man. Thanks. Hell yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate it.
Alright, take it easy, dude. Have a good rest of your day, and good luck, man.
Thank you. Catch you later.
Alright, guys. Boom. There's another coaching lesson done in the bag. This is PvZ at a platinum level, close to diamond. He's on the verge of diamond right now, so I definitely think this build will still apply into Diamond League. But thank you, guys.
Traitor.
Appreciate you watching. Much love. If you guys liked it, go check out more. I always say this, but there's always videos for Protoss Terran and Zerg, all races. So if you liked it and you want to see something either a little different or something for your race, I've done hundreds of these at this point. So I highly recommend you to go check it out and go learn some more stuff if you're down with that, if you're into StarCraft. But either way, thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take it easy. Good luck and adios. Peace, guys.